Nathan Epstein here with Andy Hilton of Recruit757.com. And Andy, we're in the month of October where strange things can happen, and so we're going to start off with our top 10, which it's been a while, some things have changed. We're going to start off with number 10 with a very resurgent program.
Well, it's well due because Indian River has proven themselves after beating Kings Fork and Western Branch. They're in the top 10. That's a pretty big move for them, considering that next year was supposed to be this year. This year, they've arrived. They're taking on some big challenges and winning games.
And maybe some Western Branch folks might dispute that, considering the fact they've only lost 2 games themselves. But now we move on to Virginia Beach.
Cox has slipped a little bit with losses to Salem and losses to Ocean Lakes. That puts them at number 9. That tells you how tough the competition is ahead of them, because those are 2 pretty good teams that they've lost to. Cox is going to be challenged to stay on their game for the remainder of the schedule because playoff seeding is at stake.
Number 8, we move on to a team that's still rolling, still only has 1 blemish on their schedule.
That's right. Norview had the week off last week, and they only had that 1 loss, and that was to Lake Taylor, who's higher up in the top 10. Norview will be challenged to close out their schedule with wins, but that could put them at 9-1 on the season going into the playoffs. That would be huge for them.
Number 7, we have to move on to the Phantoms, a team in the Peninsula that we're not sure exactly if they're a title contender just yet, but they're still a power in the Peninsula.
They're winning the games that they have to win, and the cool thing for them is that they've only taken that season opening loss to Lake Taylor. So they are getting the job done on the Peninsula side.
And over up to Williamsburg, actually at number 6, a team still undefeated, and last year they went through much of the season undefeated. Can they keep it going? We're talking about Lafayette.
Yes, Lafayette. Andy Lynn, it's funny, had defended himself to coaches, teams, players, fans about a 78-0 win that they took over Jamestown because they beat them so badly and kept their starters in. The challenge for Jamestown really is to be ready for the playoffs. The regular season is not going to give them a challenge. They have to be ready for the postseason.
And now we get on to the top 5. We have to go, of course, to Virginia Beach.
Yes, and Salem sits there at 7-1. They're an awesome team. They're looking forward to Ocean Lakes. They slipped up a couple of weeks ago, and that cost them some standing in the rankings. They have something to prove, and they're going to see it. If they win out, they're going to see it against Ocean Lakes at the last of the season.
And number 4, we go back to the Peninsula, a team, again, that just keeps moving things along. We're talking about the Hurricanes that just had a win shutting down a very high, potent offensive attack.
That proved something this week, last week, when they beat Kickotan, and they have another tough game ahead of them in Phoebus. That is going to be a true battle on Friday night.
And by the way, we were talking about Heritage. I don't know if either of us mentioned
the name.
We may
not have, but Heritage Phoebus is going to be a big one this week.
And now on to number 3, a team that we talk about title contenders. Lake Taylor, no stranger to titles. They're still undefeated, 7-0.
They cruised against Booker T. Washington last week, and that's going to be the question: is are they going to be challenged in the remainder of their schedule? Norcom lies ahead at the end of the season. That's going to be a tough game, but realistically, Lake Taylor has a lot of competition at 4A, yet they sit at the top.
So now, Andy, we get into the top 2. Now, not much has changed as far as our last top 10, which I think you mentioned maybe comes as no surprise.
Yes, it's no surprise. Oscar Smith is our number 2. Fantastic team. They have a challenge coming up with Kings Fork this week. Kings Fork is going to look to knock them off, of course, but the big game that everyone is looking forward to would pit number 2 versus number 1 in the playoffs, and that number 1 is Ocean Lakes.
And Ocean Lakes, the Dolphins, they've really have cruised up to this point. They're 7-0 and looking like a state title contender.
Absolutely, and that's the rub, is that Ocean Lakes is a title contender, Oscar Smith is a title contender. They're both 6A teams. One's going to have to win, and the big winner in all of that is going to be the fans of Hampton Roads, being able to see those 2 teams match up in the playoffs, assuming they can get there.
The only downside is we just have so long to wait.
Yes.
1 week at a time, and another edition of Friday Night Flights coming up this Friday. Of course, you can also check out Andy Hilton at Recruit757.com. Andy, we appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.